The new era for the Carlton Football Club is here. Under new CEO Graham Wright, the club did as expected and delivered big changes to the list for 2026 and beyond. Right now, it's still hard to judge exactly where the Blues are at, but their moves clearly show an intent to change the way they are playing on field and the structure of their team. It might come at a cost in the near future, but perhaps in the longer term, the changes will be for the better. So let's look into Carlton's new direction and see where it leaves their out-of-contract senior coach in Michael Voss, who got a lifeline at the end of 2025. The losses from free agency and trade are significant. There is no denying that. The Carlton spine has been dented. Charlie Curnow was one of the Blues' fan favourites, and his peak as a forward has been as good as anyone's in the 2020s. From 2022 to 2025, Curnow kicked 234 total goals and won 2 Coleman medals. But things fell off this year. He had injury troubles, and his mind in hindsight might have been elsewhere, and clearly Carlton were not entirely in love with him, and when trade period came around, they were willing to depart. Carlton won't replace his goals, but can argue the 3 first-round picks coming in set them up for future endeavours. Key forwards struggle in finals, just as Curnow did in 2023, and him departing may actually help their forward line function as a whole better, and not allow an easy bomb the ball forward to Curnow mentality we did see at times in the past 2 seasons. Ruckman Tom De Koning is the other loss. He nets pick 9 as compensation, which is good, and Carlton fans will argue his departure will have no great effect if you look at his form in the back end of 2025. But like Curnow, De Koning did have injury issues. He was reported to have been struggling to breathe at points on field in 2025, and I'm sure his mind was somewhere else, thinking of that $1.7 million St Kilda deal which he had to take. De Koning is a special talent. He showed that in the first portion of last season, and at 26 he's entering his best. But Wright, who was a part of the Hawthorn dynasty and Collingwood's latest premiership, will point towards guys like David Hale, Ben McAvoy, Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox as the budget ruckmen who led those teams. It's all a part of the ruck debate and how valuable the position really is in winning premierships. And the final loss of the spine was Jack Silvagni. His free agency departure landed pick 19 as compensation, but he showed a lot in his 13 games. He seems to have found a role as a second tall who can defend and intercept well. He was the partner Jacob Oetering desperately needed, and it will be hard to fill his void. Overall, it's a piece from each line taken out, but also leaves the Blues short on tools. Harry O'Farrell showed promise, but is recovering from an ACL and will miss 2026, and that leaves Lewis Young as the only real depth option alongside Oetering in defence or Mackay up forward. Brodie Kemp should return from his Achilles, but who knows how well he will come back, and of course, if Carlton get 1 or 2 tool injuries right away, they will be in big trouble. Surely they have to look at the delisted free agent market and get in a key defender and key forward to bolster the stocks just for the short term. So clearly Carlton have weakened their spine, but for a reason. It was the issue with the Blues. They were too top heavy with some high level players, but the bottom of the squad and role players were poor. This is the first step in changing that, helping clear up some cap space, getting in those picks to get in the next wave of Carlton players, and adding players who fit the modern game. The new additions will help in 2026 and in the future. We all know one of the big weaknesses at Carlton are the small forwards who have become so important in the modern game. The club has tried to solve this. Corey Durden was traded out to Port Adelaide, and Orazio Fantasia was delisted, opening up space for Ben Ainsworth and Will Haywood. Both are nice pieces. Ainsworth can play as a high half forward, getting up the ground well and running back to goal, and Will Haywood is more of a pressure player but has the ability to play deeper inside 50 and is good one-on-one for his size. Ideally, Voss will be hoping Jesse Motlop can finally play consistent football, and one of Francis Evans, who played well in the back end of 2025, or Will White can join him. It would then create a small forward unit of Ainsworth, Haywood, Motlop and Evans, for example, that can apply pressure, win ground balls and work up and down the field. Ainsworth and Evans could play higher up the ground, and Hayward and Motlop deeper as the goal scoring threats and crummers. Adding Ainsworth and Hayward is important to round out that area of the ground that has been a weakness for a while. Besides that duo coming in, a future third round pick was given to get in Ollie Florent, and pick 41 was used to get in former pick 14 Campbell Chesser. They are another two outside players who have upside. Florent fell out of favour with Dean Cox at Sydney, but his best football has been very good. He can play on a wing or as a half-back, which have been two positions Carlton has also struggled to fill. They tried Ollie Hollands as their key playmaker out of the back half, which didn't really work last year, so perhaps Florent can be the one to fill that void and let Hollands go back to his natural wing role. He is a cheap trade-in option that has upside and finals experience. Chesser is far more raw and never got going at West Coast due to injury. It's hard to get a read on where his body is at, and he is likely to play on the opposite wing to Hollands if he gets in the senior team. And the final addition is Ruckman Liam Reedy from Fremantle. The 25-year-old essentially came in for pick swaps and might have a role in the team alongside Mark Pittonet. Again, those tall stocks are light on, so one might have to play forward and create a contest while the other rucks. Not too dissimilar to what Brisbane did this year with Oscar McInerney and Darcy Ford. Reedy and Pittonet both fit the mould of cheap rucks who can bash and crash, which we know Wright likes. Throw in the return of Nick Newman, who was a forgotten man in 2025 due to a knee injury, and one of Carlton's best players, and youngster Jagger Smith, who is also coming off an ACL as a dynamic ball winner. It's around 7 or 8 new players in Carlton's starting 22 come round 1. The changes are clearly a starting point to pivot to a smaller, faster lineup that has more skill, compared to the previous versions of Carlton under Voss, which have been contested ball or bust. Again, as we sit here, there is work to do, but at least Blues fans can see that change is occurring, and that should provide hope. In the end, the 2025 trade period might be one step back to go 2, 3 or 4 steps forward. They lose flash and football brilliance in Curnow and De Koning, but strengthen the base with a more even spread of role players across the field. Those draft picks ensure Carlton can match any bid for father-son key defender Harry Dean in this upcoming draft, and more importantly, father-son midfielder Cody Walker in the 2026 draft, who is right now looking like a top 5 prospect. That can be difficult, especially with the AFL quiet on bidding rules and things of that nature, so it's a job well done to have all the picks sorted well in advance. Wright rejected the notion when first interviewed as Carlton CEO he was an agent of change, but actions speak louder than words. He got in a wave of new players at Collingwood that set them up, and has done similar in his first off-season at the Blues. Chris Davies comes over from Port Adelaide as well to be the new general manager of football, and Lee Adams, Damien Truslove and Josh Fraser come in to bolster the assistant coach and development holes. It is dramatic change over one off-season. The man this all affects the most has to be Michael Voss. He is out of contract and survived at the end of 2025. He's on the clock, but I'm not sure how many people have really high expectations for the Blues. Perhaps Voss's markers will have more to do with the game plan, youth development, and laying a foundation to build on rather than the wins and losses. As the pre-season progresses, it will be made more clear the club's expectation and therefore the pressure on Voss, who himself admitted at the best and fairest he fell short as a leader and that the club was not a very resilient one. Perhaps 2026 might be the season that turns this narrative around.